The last streaks of sunlight were fading along the Seattle skyline when Mark Alvarez sat hunched over a cracked, second-hand Samsung in the corner booth of Rosie's Diner. His thumb hovered above the screen while the smell of burnt coffee and grilled onions lingered in the air. The dinner rush had ended, but exhaustion had not. He carried it in his shoulders, in the tightness of his jaw, in the tremor he felt whenever he thought about next month's rent. He stared at the message draft he'd been rewriting for 40 minutes. "Hello, Ms. Hill. I'm truly sorry for bothering you again, but we still haven't received Henry's last medication refill." He deleted the sentence, rewrote it, deleted it again. Mark was a single father with no safety net. Every choice was a tightrope walk. Every mistake could cost his son, Henry, something the boy desperately needed. Henry was 8 years old, bright and goofy, with a laugh that could melt through Mark's fatigue in an instant. But Henry was also born with an autoimmune disorder that attacked his muscles when it flared, forcing him into tremors and painful spasms. His medication kept things manageable. When the medication was missing, the world fell apart. Rosie passed his booth, wiping a counter with a cloth that had seen better months. "You working late again, hun?" Mark forced a smile, trying to. She made a soft sound of pity but didn't push. People at Rosie's knew not to. Mark was one of those customers who always had papers spread out, insurance forms, caseworker notes, charity application lists, potential side gigs, all next to an empty wallet. He looked back at the phone. His son was already asleep at home, tucked in under a blanket with a stitched cartoon robot on it, sewn by his late mother before the sickness had taken her. Mark never replaced the blanket even though it was worn. It was all Henry had left of her that he could touch. He exhaled, thumb frozen. He started again. "Ms. Hill, this is Mark Alvarez. Henry's medication hasn't arrived, and I'm getting desperate. Please." He blinked hard, shook his head. Too emotional. He didn't want pity. He wanted the medicine. He tried another approach. "I'm following up on the shipment." The diner lights flickered. Someone in the back cursed about the breaker. Mark's thumb carried the wrong muscle memory. He hit a contact he didn't know he had open, didn't bother checking the address at the top. He kept typing. "Hi, I know you deal with a lot of clients and paperwork, but my son's condition is worsening. If you can help expedite anything, I'd be grateful beyond words. Please." He stepped outside before he could second-guess it, hit send, and let the cold wind of late autumn bite into him as if to punish him for being so helpless. He didn't realize until the next morning that the message didn't go to the insurance caseworker. It went to Elias Hart, CEO of Hart Robotics. When he saw the response, confusion washed over him. "I'm sorry, who is this?" Mark's stomach dropped. Not just any CEO, the Elias Hart. Tech billionaire. The kind of person who appeared on the covers of magazines with headlines like "From Garage to Global Empire." Mark had read articles about her. People called her the Silicon Phoenix for resurrecting her dying company during the tech crash. She was the last person on earth he meant to bother. Mortified, he quickly replied, "I'm so sorry. Wrong number. Please ignore." He tossed the phone on the table. His apartment's cracked walls stared back at him. He rubbed his eyes and wondered if there was a way to dissolve into vapor and disappear. Then the phone vibrated. He considered ignoring it, until he read it. "Wait, what did you mean about your son?" He hesitated. His heart pounded an uncomfortable rhythm that seemed too loud for the silence of his kitchen. He typed slowly. "He has an autoimmune condition that affects his muscles. His prescription refill didn't arrive, and he's been having flare-ups. I'm sorry, I meant to message his caseworker. I didn't mean to bother you." He pressed send. He regretted it instantly. For 10 minutes there was no reply. He stood there like a man waiting outside an operating room, body stiff, hands trembling. Then, "Where do you live?" His first instinct was panic. "Why?" "Because I'm coming." He froze. "Coming? Coming where?" The phone buzzed again. "I know what it's like to feel powerless when someone you love needs help. Give me the address." Mark stared at the screen for a full 2 minutes. He thought of saying no. He thought of ignoring the entire exchange. He thought of blocking her, of pretending this never happened. But then Henry whimpered weakly in the other room. That tiny, pained sound shattered every wall of pride Mark had built. He sent his address. By noon the next day, Mark regretted the decision 100 times. He paced his small living room, vacuumed non-existent dust, scrubbed the kitchen counters, combed his hair, shaved twice, and changed shirts 3 times. He kept expecting a message saying something like "I'm outside." But none came. Instead, there was a knock. A single, calm, confident knock, the way someone would tap on the door of a conference room they already owned. He inhaled a lungful of air he could not afford, opened the door, and froze. It was her, Amelia Hart, not in a blazer or high-fashion ensemble like news articles showed her wearing. She had on a gray sweater, dark jeans, sneakers. No assistants, no cameras, no security entourage. She looked like a woman who had slept only 3 hours for the past 3 weeks. Her hair was tied up loosely. Her eyes were tired but sharp. They darted first to him, then to the apartment behind him. "You're Mark?" she asked. He swallowed. "Yes, yes. May I come in?" He stepped aside. Of course. The way she looked around was surprising. Not with judgment, but with quiet absorption. The tiny kitchen, the second-hand furniture, the paper-taped calendar marked with medication reminders. She set down a small leather bag on the table. "Where's Henry?" "Sleeping." Mark's throat tightened. "Rough night." Amelia nodded. "May I see him?" He hesitated. Every parental instinct screamed stranger danger. But she wasn't just anyone. She was someone who had crossed a city because of a mistyped text. He led her to the small bedroom. Henry lay curled up, one hand trembling slightly against the blanket. Amelia exhaled. Something softened in her features. "I lost a sister to a condition like this," she said quietly. Different disease, but the same helplessness. Doctors knew everything except how to help her in time. Mark didn't know what to say. The world seemed to shrink around those words. Amelia gently placed 2 fingers on Henry's wrist, checking the tremor frequency, then stood back. "His body is struggling," she murmured. "He needs the medication now. Not next week." Mark nodded. "The insurance company keeps delaying." "It's paperwork." "Paperwork," she repeated with a subtle scoff. "Paperwork kills people." She opened her bag. Inside were sleek glass containers and vials, each labeled in handwriting instead of printed stickers. She removed a small injector. "What is that?" Mark asked, panicked. "A stabilizer. It's not the medicine he usually takes, but it will help him breathe easier, relax the muscle spasms." "Is it safe?" "I designed it." He blinked. "You're what?" Her lips curved into a tired smile. "Hard Robotics works on medical-grade microdevices. The stabilizer is for patients in remote areas, where pharmacies fail." He knew of Hard Robotics producing cutting-edge prosthetics and AI-enhanced exoskeletons. But this was new. She gently took Henry's arm and administered the injection. The boy stirred but didn't cry. His breathing slowed. His fingers relaxed. "What did you?" "It doesn't cure him," Amelia said. "It only buys time." Mark nearly collapsed. "Thank you," he whispered. They sat in the living room afterward. Mark brewed coffee as best he could. Amelia didn't drink it, just wrapped both hands around the mug for warmth. "How long has it been like this?" she asked. "Since his mom died," Mark said. "The condition was manageable until the stress made it worse. Kids notice more than we think." "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I work 3 jobs," he said. "I barely sleep. I try to be every parent he needs, but it never feels like enough." "That's because it isn't," she said plainly. He stared at her. "No one can be 2 people," she continued. "You just do your best as one." There was no pity in her tone. Only truth. "I mistexted you," Mark said, still bewildered. "You must get hundreds of messages. Why answer this one?" Her gaze drifted toward the bedroom door. "Because I know desperation when I hear it." Silence stretched between them. He felt compelled to speak. "I don't know how to repay you." "You don't," she replied. "I didn't come here for repayment." "Then why?" She leaned back, eyes distant. "A year ago, I stood next to my sister's hospital bed and listened to machines breathe for her. I had money. I had influence. I had everything people think matters. But none of it could get her the drug trial approval fast enough." Mark swallowed hard. "When she died," Amelia continued, "I decided that if a single life could be saved by moving faster, I'd move faster. I'm done watching people drown in bureaucracy." Her words carried a quiet earthquake. The next hour passed in hesitant conversation. Amelia asked questions about Henry's school, his hobbies, his favorite shows. She asked about Mark's work, how often he cooked, what exhausted him the most. She listened with unsettling attentiveness. Halfway through a sentence, she stood abruptly. "I want to see his doctor." Mark frowned. "He's at the children's hospital downtown." "But, we're going now." "Yes," he sputtered. I can't afford the visit. They'll bill me." Her voice sharpened. "Let me worry about the bill." She walked toward the door with startling decisiveness. Mark scrambled to grab Henry's coat and gently wake the boy, who blinked heavily in confusion but didn't resist. The drive was surreal. Her car was electric, silent as night, with seats that felt like clouds. Henry leaned against Mark sleepily in the backseat. Amelia watched the road with laser calm. They arrived at the hospital and moved through security without a single hiccup. Nurses didn't question. Doctors responded within minutes. Amelia's presence did not announce itself, it simply commanded space. Henry was examined. Amelia requested tests Mark didn't know existed: muscle sequencing panels, antibody density scans, nerve pathway imaging. Doctors responded with a kind of reverence usually reserved for visiting astronauts. Hours later they sat in a consultation room. A physician with silver hair looked over results. The medication delays could have triggered a progressive flare. It's fortunate he received that stabilizer. Mark's heart sank. Is it bad? Without intervention, yes, but with treatment and proactive care, he can live a relatively normal life. Mark thought he might cry then and there. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. What about the medication? He asked. Will the insurance? Amelia interrupted. I'll handle it. The doctor glanced at her knowingly. Of course. When they left the hospital, Henry slept soundly in the car. Mark sat in the passenger seat, pale with exhaustion, certain this was all a dream. Amelia stopped at a quiet intersection. Mark, he looked at her. I'm offering you a job. The world snapped back into harsh focus. What? She didn't look amused. Facilities technician at my Seattle campus. Benefits, flexible hours, full medical coverage for dependents. He shook his head in disbelief. You don't even know me. I know enough. He tried to speak but only air came out. You're stubborn, she said. You don't give up. You do everything yourself until it kills you. That's the kind of person I trust with responsibility. You don't walk away. Mark covered his mouth with both hands. I can't promise miracles, Amelia added, but I can promise access, treatment, and stability. It was too much, too sudden, too impossible. Why me? He whispered. She stared through the windshield, as if searching memories. When I was 12, she said, my father lost his job. He was a machinist. Brilliant hands. Terrible at paperwork. We ate canned tuna and ramen for a year. I remember him cutting his shoes to hide the holes, telling me they just needed more air. People like that don't get noticed until they're drowning. She turned to him. I noticed them. Mark couldn't find words. He just nodded. A week later, everything changed. Mark started the job. He learned how to maintain robotic assembly lines, diagnose malfunctions, and troubleshoot mechanical arms with sensors that responded like living tendons. He hated the first few days, so much tech jargon he felt dumb, but mentors assigned to him never gave up. Once, he overheard an engineer whisper, he's the CEO's special case. He pretended not to notice. Henry's medication arrived on time. His tremors lessened. The boy laughed again. He attempted soccer drills in the courtyard, kicking a worn ball while wearing exosuit ankle braces, courtesy of Hard Robotics Pediatric Division, lightweight, adjustable, shock absorbent. Every time Mark saw Amelia on campus, she moved like weather, brisk, unshakable, surrounded by analysts and investors. Yet once in a while, she would stop and check in. How's Henry's sleep cycle? Are they treating you well in robotics? Any problems with scheduling? Never small talk, always focused. One evening, Mark stayed late repairing a servo motor. The manufacturing hall hummed under fluorescent lights. Amelia walked in, heels echoing. You're not scheduled tonight, she said. Someone has to finish this arm, he replied. You're off the clock, he shrugged. The arm doesn't know that. She smirked faintly. You're impossible. He wiped sweat from his brow. You knew that when you hired me. She sat on a nearby workbench, arms folded. They talked for a long time. Not about tragedy or business, about life. About Henry's teacher who was obsessed with science projects. About her dog, Tesla, who stole socks from every shoe rack in the office. They laughed. Not the stranger to CEO kind of laugh. The laugh of two people who understood each other in a quiet, inexplicable way. Before she left, she said something almost accidental. One mistyped message, she murmured, and here we are. He looked at her. Do you ever think life pushes people toward each other? She didn't answer immediately. I think life punishes people who don't reach back when someone calls for help, she said. You reached. I reached back. Months passed. Henry's health stabilized. Mark became one of the most reliable technicians on the floor. His coworkers came to respect him, not because of who hired him, but because he fixed machines when others gave up. The first time his supervisor shook his hand and said, "Good job," Mark thought the words might break him. He hadn't heard adult-to-adult affirmation in years. By Christmas, he had enough savings to buy Henry a new winter coat and a robotics kit. The boys spent every night building little mechanical arms that waved awkwardly and fell apart whenever they tried to grip anything. Mark watched proudly. "It's okay if they break," Henry said. "You just build them better next time." Mark thought about those words long after Henry fell asleep. 3 days into the new year, Mark was called to the CEO's executive wing. He arrived nervous, palms sweating. The receptionist smiled knowingly. "Conference room 2, she said. Inside, Amelia sat alone at a long glass table, blueprints scattered in front of her. She gestured for him to sit. "I'm launching a new program," she said. "Micro-care units, emergency response kits designed for families like yours. It needs someone who understands what failure looks like. Someone who doesn't panic when systems break. Someone grounded." He blinked. "Me, you," she confirmed. "I'm not an engineer. You don't need to be. You need to be the person asking the real questions. How does a single parent open this kit at 3 in the morning? How can a kid carry it to school? How do we explain it to someone who thinks technology is only for rich people?" Mark swallowed. "You're serious?" She slid a folder toward him. Inside were design renderings, budget plans, and a personal note. "No child should suffer because adults argue over paperwork." He looked up at her. "You saved my son," he said softly. "You saved me." She shook her head. "You just needed someone to show up. I did what nobody did for me." Emotion crept up his throat. He clenched his jaw to steady himself. "Mark," she said gently. "Don't thank me. Build with me. The project launched 6 months later. They named it the Heartline Initiative. It distributed emergency stabilizer units, diagnostic wristbands, and quick response injectors to families, rural clinics, and underfunded schools. Every kit came with instructions written in simple language. Every device had a hotline. No insurance forms. No corporate disclaimers. The day the first shipment left the warehouse, Mark stood beside Amelia as robots lifted crates into delivery trucks. Henry, wearing his robot-stitched blanket cape like a superhero, watched proudly. "That's ours, Dad," he cried, pointing. Mark ruffled his hair. "Yeah, buddy, that's ours." Amelia crossed her arms beside them. "You know," she said quietly, "I still think about your first message." Mark laughed. "The one I didn't mean to send." She nodded. "Sometimes the universe doesn't make mistakes. People do. And sometimes, those mistakes are miracles." He met her eyes. There was gratitude there, and something more, mutual recognition, respect, hope. Behind them, the trucks rolled forward, engines roaring with purpose. One mistyped message, one unexpected visit, and a single father found more than help. He found a future.